everyone, it's Rebecca. I know I just posted a video and I wanted to post another one because I've been thinking a lot about sort of how I said in some of my first videos that I wanted to post a bit about like my mental health journey and some stuff about that. I would like to post a video on like facts around mental health and stuff like that, but for right now I'm just going to share a bit about my journey and who I am. I want my YouTube page to be sort of like basically it's a whole amalgamation about like health and health related things. So for me, I'm really about the holistic person. So the physical, emotional, mental, spiritual. I think there's a fifth one and I can never remember what it is, but like I really believe that in order to get healthy, you have to like all of you has to get healthy or none of you is going to get healthy. And so I've been working a really long time on getting sort of different aspects of me healthy. And at one point I thought I sort of had it all put together, and then I kind of didn't. And so now I'm sort of working at that process again. And by that I mean like, well, I'll sort of start at the beginning. So, I knew really early on that I wasn't quite normal. I wasn't quite like, everybody else. I say quite normal because, whatever. I was always a really happy kid for the most part. Like, I was always singing and trying to be friends with everybody and everything else. So, I think that's kind of normal. I don't know, maybe. Anyways, I have always struggled with my weight, so I was always the bigger kid in the class, which was hard, but for the most part, I always had friends. I think my teachers like me. We'll see. If any of my teachers are out there watching this, I guess you can comment and let me know, but, my report cards always said I was pleasant and stuff like that, and so, but when I was around 12-ish, I think it's somewhere in around 12, I think like most girls, you start learning more about your body, you start recognizing things, different influences happen, you're sort of transitioning from the elementary school to the middle school, your body chemistry is changing. I mean, that's just a natural part of growing up, and so all this stuff is happening in your life, and I had sort of a rough home life. I know my mom did the best she could, but things weren't always perfect. We were a low-income family most of the time, which, it doesn't bother me to say that because I don't feel shame about being a low-income family growing up, because through that my mom taught me a lot of stuff, like how to grocery shop for a household of, like, 4 people. Sorry, I had to count that. 4, sometimes more, depending if, like, she had taken one of our friends or something, but a household of 4 people, when you're only getting, one welfare check a month, and that one welfare check has to pay all of your bills, even if you live in social housing, that's not really a lot of money, and have bus money to get to appointments, and be able to buy feminine products, and da-da-da-da. So, and because of that, there was a lot of things that my mom did for us that were kind of special, that maybe, like, we couldn't have every, like, hot lunch there was. But my mom would always try to pack, like, special lunches on hot lunch days so we didn't feel left out. So, I'm not ashamed to say I grew up in a low-income family. I think my mom did a fantastic job with what she had to work with. So Mom, if you're watching this, thank you for what you did teach me. It really means a lot. And thank you for never giving up and always trying. Anyways, so around 12, my friends and I started talking about dieting. We started dealing with all those sorts of things. And so I really started to, like, experiment. I would start, like, throwing up my lunch, or I don't remember if I skipped breakfast at that point or not. I mean, I know most teenagers do, which really bad. If you're a teenager watching this, you need to eat breakfast. I still struggle eating breakfast, and it is the most important meal of the day. I agree with people when they say that. So, I don't remember if I was skipping breakfast, but I would often, like, not take a lunch or throw my lunch out or whatever. I started to try to do things that were, like, more eating disorder, like, there are days like I would try not to eat anything in the run of a day, or only eat supper or whatever. And at the same time, when I was about that age, someone had mentioned to me about self-injury, about cutting. And so they had done it a few times, they had heard about it, and one day I decided that I was going to try it. And it didn't start as anything major. It was like, I don't know, using something plastic to make lines on myself or whatever. Like, it really wasn't anything major, but it did kind of help. And unfortunately, what I didn't know is that I had a predisposition to addictive behaviors, and some other circumstances throughout life would lead to make that much worse. So it actually started a very detrimental journey that I'm still overcoming. So going through my teenage years, I started cutting, starting to use like sharper things. So I would use metal. I was even brazen enough, like I would pick up the glass off the side of the road, or a shard of metal off the side of the road, or something like that, and I would try to cut myself in places that maybe people wouldn't see, or sometimes in places that people would see. And it wasn't like it wasn't necessarily like, oh, here, look what I'm doing, but like I didn't think about it. I didn't really think about what I was doing and the effect and impact it had. All I knew is I had a strong emotion, and my way of dealing with it was to hurt myself. And what I later found out was I actually have bipolar, complex post-traumatic stress disorder, and social anxiety. And so I probably would say that like my bipolar probably started in and around those formative years, but I have bipolar 2, just so we're clear. There's a bit of a difference between bipolar 1 and bipolar 2, and I think bipolar 2 is a little bit harder to diagnose because it's not such an extreme. So I mean, I definitely had the depression part. My parents tried a whole bunch of different times to like figure out what was wrong or whatever, and I was, the typical teenager, didn't want to talk about it, didn't want to deal with it, and didn't really feel comfortable going to my parents, and not necessarily because they're horrible people or whatever, but because it's scary and you don't know what you're dealing with, let alone like trusting other people. And so I sort of like, I would talk to my friends, and I don't even think I really talked to like teachers or anything. Like I really didn't have that many adults in my life that I shared with at that point. Anyway, so I struggled with depression. I struggled with eating disorders. I think around maybe 14 or 15, I started purging. So if I did eat breakfast, I would purge. So for me, purging was I would vomit. So I won't go into any details about anything because I don't really want anybody to get like any ideas or anything. This is just my story. So I started purging, and then I would, like, if I ate anything at school, even if it was a yogurt, I would purge it. And all the while I'm dealing with sort of this depression and social anxiety and just a lot of sort of stuff going on in my world, and I didn't know how to deal with it. I didn't know how to talk about it, and nobody really knew how to talk to me about it either. People tried to help here and there. I grew up going to church, so I had some great people in my life in the church who would often try to help or to I don't even know. They tried to come alongside me and be friends with me and be someone to listen, but I couldn't even open up to them when I needed to. I'm really thankful I had them in my life because it really helped to know that there were people there who cared, because there was lots of days I didn't feel like anybody cared or anybody loved me. I thought of suicide often. In fact, I was actually I was a really suicidal teen, and I actually had my first suicide attempt when I was 17 or 18. I overdosed on medication, and that was my first suicide attempt, and I have unfortunately had many, many more since then. My last actual suicide attempt was last year, so it's still even really fresh for me. Like, I'm still really working through this process, and I'm being really honest right now, because this isn't something that's easy for me to share. It's not something I share with everybody. I have close family friends who know. I have a very supportive husband who's been there through sort of some of the harder stuff, and that. So yeah, it's not an easy journey. It also didn't help that I didn't get diagnosed with my mental health illness. The first diagnosis I got in my teenage years was, like, I think just like a basic depression, or sort of like teenage angst kind of thing. And then when I was 19, I did a psych eval, and they told me I had borderline personality disorder. And then when I was, I think, 25, I had a psychiatrist actually change my diagnosis to the bipolar 2 diagnosis. And then when I was 28, I think it was, I had another psychiatrist add on the post-traumatic stress disorder and the post-traumatic stress disorder and the social anxiety. Sorry. Wow, my brain is not working. It's actually kind of late here. It's 11:43, so yeah. So I'm going to stop this here, because I'm actually going to do a part 2 video, and hopefully this will all kind of come together for you guys. But so this is the first sort of